Good morning, good
No,
afternoon.
no, no, I am starting this off with a gigantic congratulations to you, Josh. And it's for those who haven't seen the post on LinkedIn yet, Josh is having his renewal of his vows today. And it's a very important day in Josh and Katie's life. And I love both of you. I am so happy for you. This is absolutely incredible. Cheers to the couple. And that is how we're starting today, is recognizing you and your beautiful, amazing wife in your renewal today.
Well, thank you so much. She's down at the salon somewhere getting a hair done. I got
Perfect.
my tux in the background here. That'll get put on after the show. Um, for everyone that's watching, you absolutely are invited to my wedding today. You can find us on Facebook. If you look up the Graceland Wedding Chapel, you'll see us streaming at 2 p.m. Vegas time. So that's 5 Eastern, 4 Central. Love to have you all watch as me and my wife get our vows renewed by Elvis.
It's amazing. I'm so happy for you guys.
All right. All right. So, as I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted.
You'll live.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the chaos that is cybersecurity. Whether you're dealing with the ServiceNow breach that is currently going on, or you're here in Vegas trying to get married again. Welcome to Criticality Live, presented by our partner, Secure Nation, where we cut through the noise, challenge assumptions, and talk honestly about the state of cybersecurity today, because we are cyber unfiltered. So, obviously, we know how I'm doing today. It's wedding day. I'm here with my good friend Kayla, talking all things cybersecurity. What's going on with you, Kayla? Why aren't you in Vegas?
Because I live in Massachusetts and my kids are still in school.
That's unacceptable.
I know. It's, just how it is. But I am doing well. I'm excited for watching your wedding later. I'm totally going to be there, and I'm going to be raising a toast to you and Katie. And I feel like I look more excited than you do, which we'll let it slide for now. But it's going to be a good day.
I'll say, did Katie tell you what we're doing after the wedding?
No.
We're going to the Ghost Adventure Museum in our
cool.
wedding clothes, because that's like her favorite thing in the world. Like, we came to Vegas a couple years ago and she was so mad that we didn't do the Ghost Adventures thing. So now we're going to do that in her frou-frou wedding dress and me in a horrible, horrible tuxedo.
Oh, it's so on brand. I love everything about that. I wish I was there.
All right. Enough about us. Let's get to the reason you guys all came here. Our guest. So today on Criticality Live, we have an amazing leader in the space, Kunal Agarwal. I think I pronounced that right.
Yes.
He will correct me if I am wrong. He is the founder and CEO of Dope Security. He's a hacker at heart, a product rebel. He's the host of CISO in Cars. I know Kayla's been on it, so have I recently. It's absolutely wild to be in kind of a rave inside of a car driving around.
Yeah.
So it's where he puts security leaders in the passenger seat and gets into conversations that you don't normally hear on stages. He built Dope Security from a simple idea that security should not punish the user for doing their job. So today we're going to be talking about hacker DNA, broken security system products, CISOs, with PR, without filters, and taking back what is truly kind of challenging legacy cybersecurity. So Kunal, welcome to Criticality Live.
Hey, what's up, man? How's it going? Wow, it's been so long since I've been with the two of you. Can't believe it. It's been 2 months already.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's been too long. Yeah. How's everything going?
Yeah.
Life is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Busy, but good.
Busy, but good. That's great. So you're still in Boston, Kayla, of course.
I am. Yes.
And Josh over here in Vegas, close to me.
Yeah, I'm in Vegas today. I fly back home on Friday, back to Louisiana.
Well, that's exciting. You should go out sometime, why don't you stay for the weekend?
Well, we got here on Monday, so we stayed for the week.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Well, what's going on? I mean, I dropped a couple of your videos the other day, Josh. That was fun.
Yeah, we got some interesting feedback on that.
Was there anything negative? I don't think so.
No, there was nothing negative. Just a lot of folks going, "Oh, damn, he actually said that."
Yeah, I was like, kind of took the most ridiculous examples that you put in, and was like, these are the most unpopular opinions, and of course, like you have to watch the whole thing to see every single one of your unpopular opinions. But I thought it was great. I think that sometimes that's how fostering new communication. It's not like an echo chamber sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most
So
CISOs I talk to in the car, they have like an amazing journey and story. Like I just connected with someone who was at UHG, United Health Group, for like 20 years and rose through the ranks from being like a security engineer all the way to being the head honcho CISO of UHG, which is absolutely incredible.
Wow.
yeah, you don't see that very often in our field of someone staying in the same company 20 plus years.
Yeah. But sometimes you're shocked, right? Everyone has a different journey. Kayla, I remember your journey as well on the compliance side and going from there to CISO. Josh, like obviously from a technology and military type perspective, that's all super cool. And everybody has something different they're bringing to the field. That's kind of one of the reasons why I bring the CISOs around the car. Obviously, this is a very unfiltered session. So there's a sales angle to it as well. You get to meet new people. And of course, like the scary secret is that nobody's really doing this for fun, right? Anymore. I was as a kid, but not anymore. You're kind of trying to build a business and solve problems for customers and solve problems for cybersecurity professionals, that is.
So let's talk about you. How did you get to be the founder of Dope Security? Was it, just straight hacking as a kid? Was it, some kind of, aha moment working at, some Fortune 500 company?
Yeah, so I started my career at I would start in cyber like when I was in second grade. Like we didn't really have too much cash to go to the movie theaters all the time, and so I thought to myself, I'd read this article in the Mercury News, and it was like, hey, you can download illegal movies. I was like, that seems kind of interesting and cool. And so what I ended up doing is like learning a lot about piracy and going from there to downloading or pirating Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And that was kind of a little bit of a gateway drug to other hacking type things and reversing and so on. And then from there, I ended up getting expelled and almost going to jail as a kid for hacking, and went to Berkeley. Then I was at Symantec and Forcepoint for about 10 years. So I started off as an engineer, then went to product management, which, is kind of like that is the connection between customers and engineering, right? That's the glue. And ultimately ended up saying, hey, this could probably be a little bit better. And we ended up starting Dope Security accordingly.
Yeah. So what did you see from inside those legacy security world, those companies that you came from, that made you say, we cannot keep doing it this way? Something's got to give.
I think it's about staying current with the times. And like a very simple, silly example is one thing that we sort of say is a feature of Dope is that you can click save in the console and it'll immediately take effect on 10,000, 100,000 people's laptops, because it's like, of course, like that seems kind of simple, but most products take like 1 hour to update the policy. You both know this, right? You click save and it kind of works, and 30 minutes later, maybe an hour later, it actually takes effect. And I think that is the best example of something where you have a company that's been around that makes lots of money every year, yet they don't keep with the times. They're not thinking about how does 2026 work versus how did 2008 work.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that statement carries so much weight outside of technology too. Like that's very true. Keeping with the times and giving people what they actually want and need right now.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine if you think back to 2008 or 2002. I mean, this is really where Symantec, McAfee, these kind of companies were very prevalent and everywhere in the world. And then you look at these new age companies, like I wouldn't really call them new because they've been around for a while, but think CrowdStrike, SentinelOne on the endpoint protection side, or like these, or every organization or every kind of category of cyber has been disrupted. We wanted to do that disruption as well. I was inspired to go in and say, hey, if Cylance can do it, maybe we can too.
Yeah, that's a really cool like mission and objective to have, right? Like to create something that is a disruptor, because then everybody knows who you are. And then you start to see other people trying to emulate what you're the example, right? People want to emulate you. And I think that's really cool and really admirable.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I love it. I mean, every day I get to work, and it's kind of cool because we're doing something new and innovative that we wouldn't have ever been able to do in a bigger company. I'll give again another very simple example. When LLMs first came out, we completely threw out this playbook of using regexes and pattern matches for DLP and data classification, and we replaced that. It hadn't been built yet, but we'd replaced that architecture, slotted in like OpenAI APIs, and said this is going to be amazing. That was like very, very, very controversial at the time. I remember speaking to a few different PM leaders, CEOs, and they're like, there's no way this is ever going to work. I remember specifically, I will never forget, because my investor, Ed, he's at Bold Star, he was like, really, someone said that? I'm like, that's insane. And imagine, even in today's world, everything is being powered by AI, and you're thinking back, and this isn't that long ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, somebody is telling me that there is no way any customer is ever going to use LLMs for data classification, which is crazy.
So thinking about kind of what you said, a lot of security teams treat user experience as kind of something that's nice to have, but you and your group seem to treat it like it's actually part of the security model. Where does bad user experience become a security risk?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to coverage in your teams, right? Like, I am a poser, right? I've never ran a cybersecurity team before. Ultimately, we're very good at building products. That's what Dope Security is really great at. And so if I think back to my Symantec days, my Forcepoint days, every product you would go in and use, it required a manual proof of concept. It required a sales engineer, professional services, all these things that really don't make a lot of sense in 2026. And that was like very, very, very evident. Like, you shouldn't be using these super complex tools to get this up and running. And ultimately, UX is the core of that, right? I love design. I have my camera sitting here next to me and all these things. Like, you have to make things easier to use. It shouldn't require 100-person team or even a specialized PhD knowledge in a product. That makes no sense. And that's really what security, in theory, is where we can impact that, is that, do you require this insanely specialized degree in some vendor's product to make your organization secure?
Yeah, and kind of talking about that, it's like, so Dope Security talks about fly direct. So for someone who's not deep in the secure web gateway architecture, like, how do you make it easy? And like, what problem are you really solving there?
I mean, ultimately, you think about Dope is it's about parental controls for your employees, right? So if you want to go in and have 1,000 people or 100 people at the company, you want to make sure they can't just access anything on the internet. So it starts with the simple, I used to call it the stupid 7, adult content, malicious, phishing, those kinds of things. But it gets a bit more sophisticated than that. Can you upload sensitive content from your laptop to Dropbox or ChatGPT, or use prompts? I mean, this is all about the business problem you have today, especially where you're like, hey, what MCP servers am I using? What AI apps am I using? That's all kind of how it goes and does it. But the differentiation, and that's the most important question for any product engineering manager, whatever it is, anyone who's building a product, is, why are you different? And if you think back to it, I mean, I remember like 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, this was all a box. It was a Blue Coat WebSense appliance sitting in your office or in your school or in your, kind of building. That changed, right? Zscaler, Netscope said, hey, look, let's take that box and put it in a data center. And what did we say? Well, let's just get rid of the box entirely. Your laptop is super powerful, smart, knows what it's doing. Why should you have to go in and rack and stack boxes to make a product work? It's insane. I mean, you think about that even today, like, every data center is getting hammered, literally hammered, because everyone wants rack space. Everybody needs to train AI models. Everybody wants to put these graphics cards inside of there. It's becoming more and more expensive, to the point where, like, should you have to use just an obscene amount of data centers and fiber optic cables and switches to go in and accomplish something that could just be done on your laptop? It's like a fair question, right?
Yeah. And data centers are not cheap. Here at home in Louisiana, they're building multiple data centers all around, supporting AI. There's a Meta data center being built over in Monroe, where I live in Shreveport, Bossier. They're building 3 different data centers for Amazon. They just signed another one for, I think, Microsoft somewhere in South Louisiana. And Microsoft bought 3 Mile Island to power their AI
Yeah. And I
solution.
think
So
that's it's just an old school way of doing things. And it's great. Data centers are great for certain use cases, right? But to basically create an infrastructure and pass that cost on to the consumer, which is essentially a business, it's not going to work in 2026. It's just truly not, because the amount of, I can see it myself, right? Like once upon a time, I used to use maybe 5 gigabytes a week of bandwidth. Now you can see it very clearly. I'm using more like 10 to 20 gigabytes of bandwidth a week, which is kind of cool, right? You can see there's a transition there. There's more data, there's more information. That's going to overload a data center where I'm having a bunch of 100,000 users traffic going through that. And ultimately, Kayla, to what you were saying earlier, our goal is to say, look, if you were flying from Louisiana to Florida, would you stop over in California for a cybersecurity check?
Right.
Probably not. You wouldn't do that. You'd rather fly direct every single time. And that's what Dope does.
Yeah, I know. I love the suitcases and
The
all
airplane
your
analogy.
little photo shoots that I've seen at RSA.
Yeah, it's been a really fun journey. I've been doing it for 5 years. And as a team, we have 40, 50 people in the company. Every single person is super passionate about making better cybersecurity technology. And ultimately, that's what sets us apart, is that like, we're not trying to build a company, just go in and like flip it in a year. That's not really ever been the goal. Trying to build a product and technology that people can appreciate. And somebody can say, hey, I'm proud of what I'm doing. And that's really what Dope means.
So one of the things that Kayla and I talk about all the time is that, security that users hate becomes the security that users bypass. Do you think the industry has underestimated how much friction creates the shadow behavior, the shadow AI, the shadow IT, and intentionally going around things like your endpoint protection that's run out of a data center?
I think like ultimately, if an end user wants to do something like malicious or insider thready, or just wants to get their job done, they're going to try to find a certain way of doing it. That's just the reality of the situation. You could put guardrails in place, but ultimately you do kind of have to enable your employees. And that's more of like it's a sectionality of, do you want your like end users to be using, for example, Claude Cowork? Do you want them to be using that? And if you want to do that, you can enable it in a safe way. But if you don't give them the technology in the first place, they're going to find something or some way of using it, which is going to be unsafe.
Yeah.
And there's a cost to business. I mean, if there's a cost to us as a business as well, we spend money on AI tools, which we weren't spending 5 years ago, right? They didn't exist.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point too. Like the spend, a lot. What is it that there's something I've heard it a couple times said to me. And I think it's preposterous. Like the scenarios I've heard it in, but it's like you can have it done quickly, you can have it done securely, and you can have it done like cheaply. Pick two.
Yeah.
The scenarios I've heard that in have been very vague. I'm sure it applies in a lot of things, but how does that impact like your strategy moving forward? If you have heard those things before?
I think for us is we tie ourselves to that AI budget ultimately, right? Because you want some level of discovery and then obviously governance. And that's always been the case. If you think back 10-ish years ago, I would say more than that, really 15 years ago, everybody started to use some sort of SaaS-based tools. And the first thing you wanted was discovery, right? Mm-hmm. What am I using? And the second part you wanted was some sort of governance. Hey, how can I control what you have access to? Or at least kind of restrict it down so that you're only using my file storage that's approved, things like that. I think there's so much change that's going to happen, of course, every day. Like if you went back a year, OpenAI was killing it, and today Claude is killing it, right? So everything's going to change over time. Ultimately, as much as cybersecurity, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion for you, Josh, you're going to love this, is like we always try to look at it as like, oh, this is super important, super critical. It's like, yeah, it's fair, but you're also like one sliver of an overall company's budget.
Yeah.
You're not that special, unfortunately. I mean, we're not that special. I get it. I'm all for it. But, and that's my life is cyber, but it's not the do-all, tell-all of the company.
Mm.
Yeah, I speak that all the time. I say that CISOs wildly have a bad understanding of business, and that in turn inhibits them from being a good CISO, because if you're only focused on the bits and bytes of the the things you're protecting,
Mm-hmm.
you forget why you're protecting those things, which is the actual business things. So sometimes you have to accept a risk here so that we all have jobs tomorrow, because no business, no job.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And then that's what like we have to adapt to as well. It's like, look, ultimately you're a sort of a cost center to the business, right? I mean, that's the reality. It's not, you're not producing net new, you're not helping, but you have to assist, right? You have to be part of the team. You have to be enabler, not someone who's going to get in the way. And that's one of the big things that I've seen is a lot of the CISOs that I talk to, they're trying to enable the safe use of an AI app rather than, hey, let me just block it and put a guardrail, not even a guardrail. Let me just kind of close the road for a second, which is fine. I get it. That's required sometimes, but you have to enable it in a safe, sort of secure manner. That's what we help with, obviously, from a technology. That's a business problem we solve. But like, that is what the modern CISO should be, is like, hey, we have to join the crowd, you know what I mean? Rather than get in the way.
Yeah, I think that's like so important to emphasize is like and we've talked about it before, Josh and I, with like the department of no. You need to be the department of no problem. You have to be able to enable innovation and allow teams to move quickly. And having that AI governance in place, or whatever governance you have for your processes, so decisions can be made quickly and you know what your boundaries are, instead of just saying no and shutting things down, because then people start to resent you as a leader and you're stifling the company's progress. So I think, you're spot on with that. I couldn't agree more.
Oh, definitely. Now, when do we get into the unpopular opinion section?
Well, funny you should mention that.
We're going into rapid fire round.
So you're building in a market that has a huge number of incumbents with long-standing buying habits. You're not one of those companies that is being currently used by, FedGov, DoD.
Yeah.
How and why do you think that you're going to succeed versus, all these folks have been doing it for, decade plus?
I will say it's not impossible. Once upon a time, Symantec and McAfee were the biggest names. They were too big to fail. Today, it's CrowdStrike. I'll never forget. I was in a room. It was like kind of the size of like a miniature office, and it was the war room at Symantec. You had the UI and designs from the kind of the Carbon Black and Cylance and CrowdStrike and S1, well, sort of S1 at the time. And everyone was like, oh, how are we going to defeat them? And I was really good with design and user experience, and that was, people always used to trust me. And I'm like, guys, this is not a UX problem. We are on-prem, they are in the cloud. You can go to the website, sign up immediately. There's a very different thing. And that's the same thing with Dope. It's like, look, one person requires to go and reroute to data centers, and it's going to cost you a ton of money. The other person doesn't. We give you and enable you to do this in a modern way. So yeah, I'm very, very, very excited about what we're doing. I never would have done it otherwise. I always know, like, for a fact. And as a matter of that fact, like, when I look back 5 years, every single VC I tried to pitch to, almost all of them today trust Dope Security to handle this for them, which is amazing. Like, over, I would say, 10 of the hottest venture capital companies use Dope Security internally.
That's incredible. Wow. Congratulations. That's great.
Exciting.
Yeah. All right. So like pivoting a bit to like the CISOs and cars thing, you said, that CISOs will say things in the car they may not say on stage or amongst their peers and things. Do you have any examples? You don't have to give any names of an unpopular or controversial thing that was said in the car that you were like, oh, this might get someone like a slap on the wrist or lead to negative comments. Have you ever had anything like that?
There's a lot of chatter about I will say, like, people don't think it's a video, right? So no one's going to say too much controversial. Josh, you're kind of probably an exception there, but everyone always asks about, like, for example, there was the whole sector about bribing CISOs to buy their products and so on. That was a big topic of conversation for a while. It's kind of like gone away. It's kind of gone in, but I mean, it's unfortunate reality of the cybersecurity industry from a product and technology perspective is that there's organizations that are willing to purchase a product if they show customer traction. And the only way to show customer traction is to kind of incentivize, let's call it, the customer.
It's very polite.
I mean, like, it's fine. I mean, I try to, I have tried very, very hard from the very beginning to avoid it. But now looking back, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have gone down the dark path, the dark side of the force.
You mean the scissors that I seen sitting at the Stanley Cup game last night that were there with some vendor that might be bribes? What?
There's two parts to it, right? I personally think like the reality of sales is that you're gonna have to do the dinners, you're gonna have to do the Stanley Cup stuff, you're gonna have to do the FIFA stuff. I'm gonna have to bring customers to a Chainsmokers concert and have them meet them and so on and so forth. So we got to do that stuff. The question is there like some sort of extra monetary incentive when it comes to, you know, getting advisor shares in the company and equity and so on and so forth? And is there like a one-off? Maybe that's not a problem, but when you look at it as an orchestrated sort of gang work, then it's a little bit different, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to go in and invest in this company. I have 100, 200 relationships out there. That's totally fine. I wish I had that. I'm very jealous, but it may not be necessarily kosher.
Yeah, that's true.
And reality is that you will not be successful unless you're doing some form of this in today's day and age. I don't think it's possible, personally.
So you don't think someone can come in with a killer product and just be successful based off of a great product?
You will be, but you need some sort of, every, fire needs a little bit of fuel, right? You need the ignition flame, and that ignition flame comes from coming out the gate with 100 CISO introductions. Not necessarily that you're going in and giving them an incentive to buy every single time, but you need that platform. And that platform doesn't exist to every single company. It's not every single startup has access to that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Well, I'll give you a very real example. Like, you all, I'm sure, have talked to at least one or two VC firms, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So have you talked to my VC firm, Bold Start, before?
I have not.
No.
Okay. Have you talked to Google Ventures before?
Yeah.
Okay. Who at Google Ventures?
Oh, I can't remember. This was years ago. They were in the same building I was in when I was a CISO.
Okay. So, like, as an example, like, did they build a community where we could even meet? No, I had to basically say, hey, Kayla, how's it going? You want to be part of my CISOs in cars? Same thing with Josh. That's the reality, is that you got to build it yourself.
Yeah.
I think that is extremely important. If I was giving advice to a startup founder, I'd say, you got to figure out a way to solve this problem. You got to meet people. You have to figure it out. I figured out a way of going in and doing that, but if you don't have that, you have a problem.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. In the CISO community, there's always events going on. It's usually dinners, or I think we went to a comedy show a couple of years ago, Kunal, here in Boston.
Yeah.
I was at a Red Sox game a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago or something like that as well. So it is a good thing to do, like, to bring the community together. I think you're right. It's like a blurred line when it comes to the incentivizing. What that looks like. So yeah, no, I think that's it's.
Well, if you're not doing it, you will not succeed. And I guess to Josh's point, it doesn't matter how good of a product you have. If you can't dial in the go-to-market and the traction and make the business repeatable, no one is going to fund you anymore, especially in today's day and age. Like, you can get past the seed round, yeah, for sure. But as soon as you get past that point, unless you have the repeatability, nobody cares.
Yeah, that's true. That piece is big. The repeatability. That's
precisely.
That's really good.
Very unpopular. I don't know. I kind of ruined the room here.
No, not at all. God, no, not at all.
We
No.
like unpopular. So you talked about seed round. Let's go down that thread a little bit and go, how do you go from your seed round into an A and a B round? What's the secret sauce, so to speak, to make that transition and eventually move to either a sale or an IPO?
I mean, I'm not the expert by any means. I can just, because I haven't gone down that path of a sale or an IPO before ever in my life. But I will say, it's like, look, the reality is, if you build a great technology that's solving a business problem, that is like 90% of what you got to do. And we've obviously passed that point for sure. Then to go from an A to a B round in cybersecurity is obscenely difficult, because the reality is that every single company out there can get sort of to that point, but is the repeatability there? Is this there? Is that there? And then obviously because of AI and so on and so forth, the growth expectations people expect is just very, very obscene. And so in order to get to that next level, you really, really, really have to get to a certain point of just insane. So I'm always like super excited by people that are able to do that. It's amazing. And ultimately you kind of have to mirror and embed that into your own strategy as well. Like for me, you got to go in and make it possible so that it is a flywheel. People are coming to you and saying, hey, I want your technology. If you're not at that level, you will not make it past a certain point. You won't make it to the growth stages, let's call it.
Yeah, and how much of that growth stage is, in your opinion, like repeat customers and like add-ons and things like that versus the organic new?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the frustrations from CISOs kind of goes down into the business metrics of a company, right? So when you think about when you used to buy technology, I mean, you both buy technologies today, but think it's like, oh, why do I have like 17 SKUs on this invoice? This is insane.
Yeah.
So there's two reasons for that. One is that the product managers are usually tied to their SKUs, and that's where they're kind of like saying, oh, is this product doing well or not? So that's a internal business problem. The second problem is that there's this value net renewal retention, which is based off of the add-on expansion capability, as well as how often people are renewing your product and how sticky it is. So naturally, because of those two things, you end up seeing this laundry list of SKUs when you buy a product. That's why.
That's really interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot of frustration for sure. I know we have two SKUs basically. We have like a couple of extra optional add-ons in case you don't want to buy it like that. But basically, there's the web filtering, and then there's everything, including DLP, AI DLP, AI SSPM, all that good shit. That's all that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've seen with my peers across the industry is that you'll get a company that'll come in and they'll get you tickets for the Knicks game at Madison Square Garden during the championship. They'll take you to a suite at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, and then you sign a contract with them, and then their product completely sucks, and they don't renew with that, and you have that constant churn of whichever company has given me the coolest thing that year.
Yeah,
being the thing. How do you break out of that cycle?
So for us, we can't get into that cycle. Like as a company, it's impossible for us to get, because most organizations, there's a lot of it is a heavy lift to go in and say, hey, I'm going to go in and get dope security as a company. Why is that? Because one, we're replacing typically a Zscaler, Netscope, Cisco Umbrella, what used to be Symantec or Forcepoint. That's really our story. So if you're going in and replacing something, or even if you're doing something net new, there's still a level of deployment, and there's a commitment required that you're going to go in and sort of deploy our software to each one of your laptops. So it's more difficult, obviously, for us to sell to a customer, but at the same token, that customer has to be completely bought in to use the technology. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. However, if you were just authorizing the APIs, let's call it like a great example would be an SSPM type product. You just go in, you authorize your 365 APIs or whatever, you can cut the connection in a month or a day or a year. It doesn't really matter. There's no harm to you as an organization. It's much more difficult to say, for example, uninstall CrowdStrike from all 1,000 laptops you have in your company, or to uninstall Dope from all 1,000 laptops you have in your company. That's where there's sort of like a give and a take. So I haven't really gotten into that cycle you're talking about. Like, it doesn't matter how many, Knicks games or how many like hockey games or this or that. It doesn't matter how many dinners I do. It won't help necessarily unless we're solving a problem for a customer.
Yeah.
Which is valuable, but yeah, that's just the way it works.
Yeah, no, totally. So shifting a bit from that into leadership, right? Because there's a big difference between seeing like what's broken and actually building a team, a company, and a culture, right, that can fix it. And you've identified a problem, and now you've built this company around solving it.
Yeah.
What has leading, your company, Dope Security, taught you about turning maybe this rebellious mission that you have into actual execution?
I think there's like this overarching external marketing story, right? Where it's like, oh my God, Dope Security, it's this, it's that. It's like, well, yes, but underneath the hood, we have an extremely stable, extremely scalable technology that is very, very, very enterprisey, extremely enterprisey. Like that is our goal, is to basically build something that's very turnkey, that works really well, that just has an amazing customer experience. I think that people sometimes they take it's like, oh, it's like a very rebellious company and so on, which obviously we sort of say we are, but the actual technology itself is, I would say, inimitable in the industry. We are like very, very much unmatched in terms of user experience, design, customer experience, and overall ease of use as a technology to solve a problem.
And like, what part of like moving from like hacker and product builder into CEO, like what was the most difficult part of that? Because like now you're not just focused on one thing, you are building that foundation.
You don't know what you don't know, right? And so you have to learn very quickly. And sometimes it takes you too long to learn, but you can't look too much in the past. You gotta learn in the future, right? And I think, one thing that we knew how to do, and I knew how to do, and our team knows how to do, is build a really good product, right? I think to a lot of our, team leads that have been here since day one, they run engineering, design, user experience, all these things that they're all really, really great at what they do. But that is one half of the battle. The other half is marketing, sales, right? And so if you think about every cybersecurity company you all use today, 20% of that's engineering, 80% of it's go-to-market.
Yeah. And so I'm assuming you have the same mindset that I have, where it's like, if you don't know something, you find the smartest person in the room and you hire them, you bring them on. And
oh yeah, I mean, I would say like I am trying to hire people that are much better than me at our various areas.
Yeah.
Dramatically better. Like they know how to go in and be super detailed and engineering centric or product centric, or hey, they can go in and do finance and marketing way better than I can. So that's the whole goal. I mean, I look at our logo, which Ashley, who designed, and she has always been since the beginning, let me build something that is at the intersection of fashion into technology, into cybersecurity. And that's what the logo really represents, is that if you look at that and you change the words a little bit, it would look like a Balenciaga or a Louis Vuitton logo.
Do you still have those jackets?
Yeah.
Those long jackets, nice.
Everything. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, the clothing is really exciting for me because it's something that you can physically manifest. I think, Josh, I sent you a t-shirt, a dope t-shirt. So the thing is, you can build this idea, and ultimately for me, this is my first company, but it was really important to me, and everything I do is very important. I'm very passionate about what I do, but I will never wear a t-shirt. I will never create a company name that I wouldn't wear the t-shirt of on a weekend. And nothing is more cool and exciting than saying, oh, he has a dope t-shirt, dollar dope dealer t-shirt or something like that. That's pretty cool. I would wear that on the weekend.
Yeah.
So
very
you're building against a lot of huge incumbents.
Yeah.
How do you keep your team bold without letting the "we're rebels" thing kind of become its own ego trap?
You have to be very, very honest with how things work and what is not working, but also what we need to build, right? Like it's the same way I'm being with you. It's like, well, when I started, I didn't have a CISO network, so I had to build one very, very quickly. That was an important consideration that needed to happen. Call it a year ago, you couldn't search, Netscope replacement or Zscope replacement or something like that and go in and see that. You couldn't do that. But now if you do that, you'll actually see dope security there, which is awesome. So there's a lot of changes you have to make along the way to help evolve the company and technology. And some of it's not really tech, it's a marketing or sales thing to go in and make it happen. That's very, very important for sure.
And then talking about like trust and go to market and how quickly, startups move. And I know just my own experience, like security customers, we're demanding people.
Yeah.
Perfection, right? Like what cultural behaviors have you had to protect most aggressively as your company has grown?
There is an excitement factor, right? If people are bought in and excited about building something every day and being part of that journey, that is perfect. That's absolutely perfect. But the team you start out with isn't the team you end up with, right? We had people in the beginning that we were there for a handful of months, and you kind of have to, unfortunately part ways as an organization. And that has to happen because you got to push forward, right? I think, there's this thing that I always tell myself is like, I would never, ever rather be doing something else than I'm doing dope right now. Every single day. Like, this is super exciting. I never would have met both of you if I was still at Symantec or if I was at Forcepoint, or, my boss at the time moved from Forcepoint to Tenable. I never would have met you all. I wouldn't have learned so much. And that's pretty exciting to me. It's really cool to do that. And there's a lot of people, I would say, like, not everyone I can consider friends. Ultimately, they're customers. And there's a relationship there that you don't want to kind of cross the boundary of. However, there's like a few people I've met along the way that, like, they have been very close to me, for sure.
So, as a CISO, how do you decide when to trust your gut, when to trust your team, and when to push through a challenge, and when to take a step back and evaluate it?
Well, as a CEO, you mean? Yeah. So I think, like, I personally, like, try to understand the best I can, right? Whenever there's a very, very critical decision. However, if there's a decision that I don't need to be a part of, it's the team's decision. Like, let them go in and decide and figure it out. And that's something I've had to evolve my own leadership style in the last 5 years, even. It's like, look, you really can't be involved in everything. Team is there, go in, figure it out, move on, right? Sometimes, like, there is certain things that I feel very strongly about that need to happen. But over time, it's like, well, team is relatively very, very, very intelligent, really up to their own, like, mentality and devices. And as long as it's part of the overall vision and process, sounds good, right? And so you end up trusting your team a lot more. I think back to, like, 5 years ago, I would be filing defects and just going in and getting into the details of that. Now I understand what those defects are and see what they are, but rely on the team, my leadership team, to go in and figure all that stuff out.
Yeah. So it's not just building trust with, like, your customers in the market. You're also building it amongst your leaders, which then culture.
The thing with Silicon Valley startups is very unnatural what you're doing, right? You're basically going in and trying to get millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of ARR in a very, very short, compressed period of time. So it can be very, very grueling at times. It's a roller coaster up and down. There's a lot of crazy things that are there, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Not that I would recommend, but I would not recommend. In fact, there's a few things I wouldn't recommend. So maybe it goes to your unpopular opinion, Josh.
All right, well, what else is there then? What else is there?
I would recommend to CISOs that they should go in and start a company, founder. I'm not saying it's bad to, by the way. I'm just saying these are unrecommended things. And it's always good to go against the beaten path.
Yes.
I don't always recommend that they should go in and become investors. That's another thing I don't recommend. I don't recommend that they become the CISOs of cybersecurity companies. I see you laughing there. I don't recommend you become a field CISO.
Really?
Yeah. And what's the last one? There is a last one. There's 5. I forget the 5th one.
So you don't have a field CISO then?
No, because I think that they're salespeople. And I think that, like, if you're going to hire someone if I was going to hire either of you to be a field CISO, there would be a mismatch in expectations, right? Because I need to build pipeline. I need to build use cases that help solve problems. Going in and, setting up conversations and dinners. Look, it works at an early stage for sure, but the reality is that most CISOs are not relationship people, right? They're doing their job at their company. They know people. Like, Kayla, you and I know this, right? We've talked about this tons of times. Like, people, CISOs, but is your day job going to be to introduce me to those people? I don't know. I'm not sure that's the case. So yeah, that's why there's a lot of turnover. If you actually look at the field CISO role, there's always a lot of turnover. And I think it ultimately does benefit the company, but it doesn't leave the CISO in the best position afterward.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that one. There's a lot of misalignment, because then, to your point, people in the team will treat you like a BDR.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, I'm not a BDR. I'm not making 50 cold calls for you, and that's not my job.
And there's just a mismatch of expectations, right? And that's the reality. Is think about it right now. If this is the first time we're meeting and I'm interviewing y'all, I'm like, all right, Josh, how many CISOs do you know? And just when we think about that for a second, like, just that question right there, is that really the career you want to be part of?
Me?
Wow, I finally made
Probably
it
not.
awkward. That's amazing. I'm so proud of myself.
I mean, I'm not really a seller, because I will tell you the truth, whether it's, good, bad, or indifferent, which probably doesn't set me up for a field CISO role very well, because I would be very honest if this is not going to fit your need right now.
Yeah, but I think that's where there's a mismatch of expectations. And so when you look at a field CISO role and you come in and you basically are a BDR for an organization, and then you try to transition out of that, it is a disservice to you because it's more difficult for you to get a job after that.
Mhm.
Secondly, like you're not really signing up for that, but you don't know that because people just want your relationships. And so it's a very one-sided type of thing, and ultimately you're not a salesperson. You can become one. I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm not saying it's an issue. But personally, I don't like to leave people in like a worse scenario from a job and career perspective than what they signed up for when they started with Dope.
Yeah, no, I think that can be appreciated, especially in the way the market is today.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it depends. Or organizationally, the smaller companies probably would fare better with having a field CISO. But if you're bringing in an actual CISO like Josh and I, can they afford it? Right? What does that look like too?
Which is a different problem altogether. It's like, hey,
Right.
you're
Yeah.
a small company, like let me go in and bring in a person because they're going to know all the CISOs. They're going to get in front of everyone to basically be a BDR salesperson. Yeah. That's it. And you're basically building relationships. You're coming on the call. You're doing the stuff. That's not what you're great at. That's also not great for the company because it's way more expensive. And in order to build this community, you're basically saying spend an obscene amount of money when you could be using that money to hire a salesperson. You could be using that money to hire an engineer. Yeah. Is that the right methodology? And again, I could be completely wrong here. I've not seen, and I see some comments like John and David McKinley and so on. I'm like, I've never seen it be like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. Maybe 1 out of 1,000 people would say that it's amazing.
Yep. I definitely agree with you on that one. So after spending so much time with CISOs in that more candid format of the CISOs and cars, is there like any leadership pattern that stands out to you? Like, is there anything that separates the leaders who are truly respected from the ones who are just well branded? Now that's gonna be a controversial one. Be controversial. Do it.
Yeah, no, there's definitely like, there's people that are doing their job and there's people that are doing this for the free dinners, right? It's very clear. And unfortunately, like after doing lots of dinners, like I have a blacklist of people that just, and some of these aren't even CISOs, they just come to every event you could ever put on. If you put on an event in New York, there will literally be 5 people. I already know who they are that will sign up for your event. They're not CISOs, they're not buyers. They're just going in for the free dinner. I already know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You can do a test. They are like scouring the Lumas for the free dinners and free bars and everything like that. I swear. And I've gone into like just debates or disputes with other companies out there where we haven't done events together specifically for this reason. Mm-hmm. I said, I will not do an event, and we have to back out an event because I'm not going to do the event. There's no way, because I'm not going to be taking, it adds up, right? So like, let me give you an example. There's a CISO I have in New York. Well, he's kind of the CISO. He basically brings in new technologies to the company. And I had to explain to him the other day, I said, dude, like I love you and you're a great person and you're good. But like the reality is I don't know if you truly realize how much money I've spent on you. You came to my bar event. That was about $100. You came to my dinner. That was about $600. You came to an event that I sponsored. So if you mathematically game it out, another $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. If you add in this lunch we were having, it's another $100. Basically, I spent over $2,000 getting to know you.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Yeah.
Just saying.
And then you didn't buy.
Well, it's fine that you didn't buy. I get it. It's great to build a relationship, but ultimately, like, there's a little bit of self-policing that we should do, right? It's not all the vendor's fault. It's like, dude, I would encourage both of you as well. It's like, with your own peers, it's just, guys, like, I get it. You can go to a dinner every single time. It's good to build a relationship if you're interested in technology, but at a certain point, like, it's no longer a networking thing and it's more of a salesy thing. It's like, come on, just be it upfront and say, hey, dude, like, like what you're doing, super interesting. I'll try to help you as much as I can, but there's no reason. And honestly, I've been in scenarios where some of my CISO friends have just tried to buy the dinner for me or buy the drinks for me. And some of my customers have tried to do that for me as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's
tried. They didn't succeed. They tried.
No, I mean, it's another one of those scenarios where it's like a fine line, like of networking and then sales expectations and stuff as well. I mean, for me, right now, what's keeping me from going to events is that they're all in downtown Boston or north of Boston. And that can be 2 hours if there's traffic. So like, I'm like, no, thanks. If you're only going to be in the city, not coming out to like, I don't want to say coming out to the suburbs, but there's, we have like Gillette Stadium here or Boston Stadium for the World Cup, doing an event there, or you're not going to go to Providence, which is like a little bit closer, but smaller town. Like I'm not going to make the effort unless I know who's going, or I'm going to, get to do that networking piece.
And that is like something that the organization or whoever's putting it on, like whether that's a startup or whether that's some sort of like an event company or marketing company, they have to go in and figure that whole thing out. And I think the reality is that any organization that's doing this stuff, they have to also think, how am I helping my constituents, which are the sponsors as well? I've dealt with a lot of that too, where it's like, you're trying to help them understand. It's like, I get it. I'm all for building the community. I'm all for making the conversations happen. But the sad reality is the reason why you're spending all this money is to help drive business.
Well, I've told you and I've told George to have events in Providence, and there haven't been events in Providence yet. That's all I'm going to say.
It'll happen soon.
That's on camera, on recorded. So, if it doesn't happen, we're holding you accountable.
No, exactly. We have to.
I had to put you on the hot spot on that one. But so we're already getting down to like the final few minutes here already. So we always end with a set of core questions that we ask.
Yeah.
So if you could fix one thing in the cybersecurity industry overnight, what would it be?
Oof. I mean, the thing is that like I can't really speak from a CISO perspective. I would say from a startup perspective, I do think like it would be nice for people to really be honest with what the product and technology they're building.
Yeah.
I think sometimes like going in and finagling into some like massive platformy type of words and buzzwords, it doesn't help anyone. It's just better to be very, very real and particular with what you're doing.
But doesn't that like completely take out like all of RSA? Is all buzzword bingo? Come on now.
It's agentic AI, man. It's agentic AI.
And it's like tough because, I get it. You got to kind of like remain relevant and you have to say that there's certain things you're doing. And look, the reality is that, maybe half those people are actually doing what they say they're doing. But the other half, it's like, you're kind of like just sort of building this perpetuation that people are lying. And I think that's a very important component for sure. It's just being honest and truthful with where we are, where you're going, and what you're building. That's great, and that's an important part. I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of showmanship. Let's not be real, right? So you have to do that, but just being a little bit integrity focused is important.
Yeah.
All right. So for my question, and I'm hoping that you give me an unpopular opinion on this. What's one practice? It can be technical or cultural, or you can give me one of each, that you wish organizations would stop immediately.
What's a practice?
Yes, a practice.
Like what? Not hiring field CISOs? No, just kidding. Like just a general, like this is
just in general, business in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a little bit of like carpet bagging that you see a lot of, right? Like people come in like, oh, cyber seems interesting. Like, let me just go in and jump in there and see what's up and try to make some business out of it. I think sometimes that can get a little weird for people that are kind of in the industry as their career and kind of as a whole thing, for someone that's just coming in it because they think there's a gold rush there. I think that practice is a little, I get it. It's like you see that stuff and you can tech bro your way into it, but it's a little weird sometimes to go in and think about that like that.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that teaching at university. Students come in, I'm going to do major in cybersecurity because I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm like, probably not going to make a lot of money. And in 2026, definitely not going to make a lot of money.
I firmly believe the best way to be successful at something is to be doing what you're really passionate about, right? And if you are really excited and that gets you up every day and you like doing it, you're going to love it forever. But if you're trying to make a quick buck off of cybersecurity, that's not really going to be a solution. It's to just go in and do that. And that exists for all components, right? Going in and studying the form and going in and being a CISO or whatever, or going in and building a company that happens to service cybersecurity. I mean, look, you always hear about the wins, right? You never hear about the losses. You never hear about like the things that didn't work out, you know? There are a lot of companies that have gone and acquired for a lot of money and they've done insanely well and so on and so forth. There's also a lot of companies that they don't work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's far more that don't work out than the ones that do. Absolutely.
You just don't hear about them as much.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my dad, did really well at a chip company, silicon company, here in the 90s in Silicon Valley, right? And so he took some of that money and it invested in different startups, right? I remember there was one called eCosmetics, and the whole idea was it was a cosmetic store on the internet. And this is in like 2000, and it failed spectacularly and lost a ton of money. My mom and dad used to fight a lot about it and so on. We didn't have that much money because of these investments, and they didn't work out. Now, when I think about that, I'm like, it was a bubble and Silicon Valley bubble and so on. But that was a part of the problem, right? You're basically taking someone's potentially money and building into something where you're not really trying to build a business. You're just trying to go in and do something. And that's the same problem that I have with people that are like, oh, go and invest in crypto and go and invest in NFTs. It's like, I'll never forget the waiter that came up to me in India and say, hey, Kunal, can you help me? I said, oh, what's up? It's like, well, I invested all this money in crypto and I lost everything.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, that sucks so much.
Yeah. Oh, for our listeners who want to follow you, where's the best place to do that?
LinkedIn, baby. Let's go. Now, LinkedIn is always best. That's the work stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. So before we let you go, can you give us any final thoughts on cybersecurity leadership, building, cybersecurity businesses for 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to learn from what's working today, right? I mean, what was working in 21 and 22 and 23 and 25, it's not the same that's going to work in 26, right? I mean, we talk so much about all these different topics right now, but if you wanted to build something right now, I mean, I gave you 5 things a CISO shouldn't do. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. There's always going to be an exception to a rule, like a Carl Mattson, for example, which I know you guys both know. It's like he created an amazing VC firm. I told him from as soon as we were at the St. Regis at RSA, you should do this. And, never let anyone tell you no, right? You should do it if you really, truly believe in it. But there's a reason why maybe it doesn't work out. And just understand that so you can adapt to what it's like in when you're doing it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. All right, well, that's a wrap on this episode of Criticality Live. Huge thank you to our guest, Kunal Agarwal, and an even bigger thanks to you for hanging out with us and being a part of our growing committee of leaders who are done with buzzwords and are ready for real conversations. If you got value out of today's episode, hit our follow button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop us a review here on LinkedIn, Spotify, or on our on-demand YouTube channel. And of course, a big shout out to our sponsor, Secure Nation, for powering our conversation today. They're helping organizations defend smarter, respond faster, and make cybersecurity something that actually works. So go check them out. This has been Criticality Live, where we cut through the noise and get to what really matters. See you next time. Thank you.